The exact moment I knew I was screwed was when Brett Sullivan slid a manila folder across the HR table like he was dealing blackjack at a funeral. "We'll easily replace you with someone cheaper," he said, that smug-ass smirk practically tattooed on his face. I didn't say anything back, not because I didn't want to. I had a whole buffet of sarcasm marinating on my tongue, but because my boss, Kyle Hendricks, was sitting beside him, linking like a deer about to apologize to the headlights. I think he muttered something like, "It's not personal." But at that point, I wasn't registering sound so much as static. White noise, rage with a dial tone. My ID badge was deactivated before I'd even zipped my coat. 10 years, 10 goddamn years at North Point Analytics, gone with one smug HR fart and a weak chin nod. They walked me out like I was radioactive. Brett didn't even have the decency to make it awkward. Just handed me my cardboard box like a grocery clerk and turned back toward his office, already unwrapping whatever microwave crap he eats at 10 a.m. My box had the usual framed team photo from 2016, my custom caffeine molecule mug, a succulent I kept alive through 2 mergers and 1 divorce, and a flash drive I'd forgotten was even plugged into the back of my monitor. I held that one a little tighter. Lobby smelled like lemon Lysol and broken promises. I didn't cry. Not there. My tears have a union rep in a non-compete clause. But I did pause outside looking up at that concrete Denver monolith of a building, and I thought, Node 7, the data center core, my data center, the one I designed from scratch when management slashed the budget and told me to be creative with security infrastructure. So I did. I built a biometric system so tight it made Fort Knox look like a Chuck E. Cheese. And because they didn't want to spend extra on multi-admin redundancy, I implemented a failsafe keyed only to me, my handprint, my retina, my voice. I sent 3 emails suggesting they add another admin. Crickets. You know what's funny? I remember sitting on that idea for weeks thinking, what if they fire me someday? And I'd always chuckle, shake it off because I was loyal, because I was safe, because I was stupid. Now, I know this is where half of you are expecting some, but I held my head high and walked off into the sunset nonsense. Nah. I went to my car, threw the box in the back seat, screamed into my steering wheel like a banshee with a Bluetooth headset, and cranked the AC even though it was 40 degrees out in Denver. Humiliation tastes like copper and stale gum, in case you're wondering. Still with me? If you are, me a tiny favor. Hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit my first 10,000 subscribers without selling my soul or joining an MLM. And every click feels like a middle finger to Brett Sullivan from HR. Plus, I've got more stories, and trust me, they get worse before they get good. Back to the bloodbath. I started driving, autopilot mode, not even sure where I was going. Half a mile down Colfax Avenue while sitting at a red light watching some teen TikTok himself into traffic. I felt it. That flicker of something. Not hope, not yet, just friction. My brain catching on a jagged memory. The lock, the biometric access panel, the one in the server vault. It took 2 years to get budget approval for that thing. State-of-the-art triple layer scan. Only one credential. Mine. My voice is the override. My retinas. My goddamn palm print. They never fixed that. I know they didn't because I asked 3 times and Kyle always said the same thing. Let's just circle back next quarter. Well, Kyle, buddy, you're about to be doing laps around that locked door. Suddenly I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was curious. Curious how long it would take them to realize that the thing they just threw out with a $50 Amazon box was also the only person who could get them back in. I turned off the radio. The silence in the car was delicious now, like pre-thunder air, thick with possibility. My phone buzzed once. Then again, 2 missed calls from a known number. I didn't answer. Not yet. When I got home, the silence hit like a body slam. No whir of the office air purifier, no hum of background chatter, no keyboard clacks from the cubicle next to mine where Elliot used to type like a caffeinated woodpecker. Just the heavy, almost theatrical quiet of a house that wasn't ready to have me in it during daylight hours. I dropped my box on the kitchen counter. The succulent tipped over and spilled dirt like it had finally given up too. I stared at it for a solid minute before deciding, yeah, me too, buddy. I didn't bother to unpack. What was I going to do? Hang my employee of the quarter plaque over the trash can. I booted up my laptop with the grace of a woman 48 hours from becoming a cautionary LinkedIn post. The job sites all greeted me with that same chirpy energy that feels like getting hit in the face with a Nerf bat. Hi, Claire Donovan. Ready to find your dream job? Yeah, sure. I'll just sort by companies that haven't replaced me with a 24-year-old named Trevor Moss. I clicked around half-heartedly. My fingers moved, but my brain didn't. Just static. White fog around every thought. Am I too old for this? Should I dye my hair again? Do I still have that blazer that doesn't make me look like a school principal on trial? I had a folder titled Career 2 Points. Oh, that hadn't been opened since the first Trump presidency. I opened it, closed it, stared at it like it had cursed me in Latin. Then the calls started. First one, unknown number. Second one, unknown number. Third one, same thing, like clockwork. Spaced out every 50 minutes like someone was slowly panicking in 4-minute increments. I let them all ring. No way in hell I was playing tech support for North Point Analytics that tossed me like expired yogurt. Instead, I opened a new tab and started typing out a resume summary that felt more like an obituary. Seasoned IT architect with over 15 years of experience in secure infrastructure and enterprise-level data operations. It all read like lies, or worse, truths no one cared about anymore. The fourth call came through right as I was rewriting my bullet points for the third time. My phone vibrated against the table like it was trying to break free and run. I picked it up, thumb hovering over the red decline button. Then I saw the message. It was from Vanessa, the only person in accounting with a sense of humor and a decent moral compass. Vanessa, hey, weird question, but no one can get into the server room at all. Do you change the code before you left? I stared at it. Read it again, then again. My lips curled into something between a smirk and a snarl. I typed exactly one word. Me? Nope. No emoji, no explanation, just the clean, satisfying thud of a truth bomb. A few seconds passed. No response. I imagined Vanessa holding her phone, eyes wide, slowly looking up at the block toe entrance to Node 7, wondering just how deep this rabbit hole went. I turned my phone on silent, walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of red the size of a medium soup bowl, and then I sat down on the couch like a queen settling into her throne of petty satisfaction. Because now it wasn't grief anymore, not sadness, not confusion. Now it was anticipation. That slow, creeping glee when you know the movie's only halfway through and the villain just realized the security cameras don't work. They wanted someone younger, someone cheaper. Let's see how much Trevor cost them by sunrise. The first voicemail hit around 2:41 p.m., barely 3 hours after I told Vanessa. Nope. I was halfway through binge-watching some garbage reality show involving couples screaming at each other in IKEA when my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. But it wasn't unknown this time. They were getting smarter, desperate. Voicemail 1. Hi, this is Trevor. I think you were the previous IT administrator. I'm just calling to ask if you could send over the admin credentials for the Node 7 core. Kind of urgent. You might have forgotten to leave them behind. Haha. The forced laugh at the end made me pause the TV. Ah, so this is the guy. Trevor sounded exactly like I imagined. Voice cracking under the weight of overconfidence. Barely shaven man-boy who probably had a startup once and called himself a tech disruptor because he installed Linux on his mom's laptop. I didn't listen to the whole message right away. I just let it marinate while I refilled my wine glass. Let it breathe. By the time I was back on the couch, phone in hand, the second voicemail was already in. Voicemail 2:3:12 p.m. Hey Claire, it's Trevor again. Just following up, still waiting on those credentials. We're kind of locked out over here. Getting a little weird. Could you maybe give me a call back? A little weird. Honey, you're standing in front of $1 million coffin that only opens to my handprint. Weird. Doesn't even cover the prologue. Voicemail 3:4:20 p.m. I'm gonna need those credentials like ASAP. I don't think you realize the position you're putting everyone in right now. This is affecting operations. And there it is. The shift. The first whiff of panic, I pictured him standing outside Node 7, maybe still wearing his lanyard from new higher orientation, pit stains blooming like reverse flowers on his baby blue button-down, probably tapping the glass with increasing urgency, watching it sit there like a tombstone, a blinking red light, a solid steel wall, unmoving, indifferent. Welcome to the machine, Trevor. By voicemail number 4, he dropped all pretenses. Voicemail 4:53 p.m. Look, I know we didn't exactly get off on the right foot, but this is really serious. I've got people breathing down my neck. I need to get into the server room, or Christ, someone needs to. Can't you just help out, please? I played that one twice. There was something magical about the way he said please, like it physically hurt him. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. That part of me, the part that used to feel guilty, that would have rushed in to save the day out of some martyr's sense of duty, had curled up and died somewhere between Brett's smirk and the sound of my ID badge getting denied at the turnstile. The fifth message was almost tender. Voicemail, 5:47 p.m. Hi, Claire. Trevor again. I don't know what to do. The CTO's here now. He's not happy. I told him you might have. Maybe you had a reason for not leaving the access. Maybe they didn't treat you right. I don't know. But can you please just help us? Even if it's just temporary. I closed my eyes and pictured Trevor sitting on the floor outside Node 7, arms wrapped around his knees, rocking slightly as the executive team paced behind him like caged tigers. The smell of burned pizza from the overworked break room microwave, the click, click, click of someone's heels as they stormed past for the fifth time. This was no longer desperation. This was penance. I didn't reply. Not yet. The longer I waited, the more expensive their apology would become. The call came at 7:34 p.m. Kyle Hendrick's name lit up my screen like a mosquito in a bug zapper. Glowing, twitching, doomed. I hadn't heard from him directly since that's not personal. Symphony back in the HR room where he sat like a sad ventriloquist dummy while Brett pulled the strings and shredded my career. Seeing his name now, I didn't feel dread. I felt a cold, precise interest like watching a slow-motion car crash from inside an air-conditioned diner. I didn't answer. Let it ring out. 50 minutes later, another call. Same name. This time I picked up. Claire. Hey, glad I caught you. Kyle said too cheerful too fast. That tone he used in meetings when trying to pivot out of admitting he forgot the agenda. I replied just that. Let him dangle. Listen, I just wanted to check in. You know, no hard feelings, right? I always thought you were a valuable part of the team. I didn't say anything. Silence stretched so long I could hear the faint hum of air conditioning on his end. Maybe he was still in the building. Maybe outside Node 7, pacing like an over-caffeinated lab rat. So anyway, he continued, already sweating through his own fake friendliness. We seem to be running into a small hiccup here. Nothing major, of course, but Trevor's had a little trouble accessing the core system. Apparently, some of your, procedures weren't documented. Hiccup. Cute word for catastrophic infrastructure lockdown. You mean Node 7? I asked, still calm. A pause just a beat too long, right? Yeah, Node 7, we're just hoping you could, step in, be the bigger person, maybe help us resolve it quickly and professionally. There's really no need to escalate this. Ah, there it was. The pivot buddy-buddy to corporate passive aggression in under 30 seconds. A record even for him. Claire, he added more slowly now, you do realize you still have professional obligations, legal ones. Withholding critical access credentials could be seen as sabotage. We'd really hate for this to go down that road. I let him stew in his little legal fantasy for a moment. Then I took a slow sip of wine and said, Kyle, do you remember the Q3 security audit I sent you? Silence, not even breathing. The one where I explained the single point of failure risk with the biometric lock system. The one where I recommended adding a redundant administrator just in case I was hit by a bus. Or, I don't know, terminated without warning. I could almost hear his Adam's apple panic swallow. The one I continued voice still silk, signed off on ignoring because it would have cost North Point Analytics $800 for a secondary license. The same $800 that could have prevented all of this. Kyle finally inhaled sharp and shallow like a man realizing he'd walked into a lion's den with pork chops taped to his thighs. I didn't wait for his excuse. I didn't need it. I tapped the red button and ended the call. The silence afterward felt like a standing ovation. I leaned back on the fading buzz of adrenaline humming behind my ribs. Not rage this time, not sorrow, but something clean, electric, and satisfying. Power, real power, not granted, not requested, claimed. The group chat was still called Control-Alt-Delinquents. We'd started it during the pandemic when Zoom meetings made everyone lose grip on time, sanity, and the will to pretend Kyle wasn't useless. It had gone dormant the past few months. Promotions, resignations, 2 co-workers slow slide into quiet quitting. But now it lit up like Christmas in a meth lab. I posted first. Claire Donovan. So anyone sleeping in the server hallway tonight or just Trevor? 3 seconds. Then a rapid-fire explosion of messages. Preston says ops, face page facilities. Girl, it's a zoo over here. Morgan accounting, they ordered 16 pizzas to the 4th floor. 4. And all the execs are in the hallway like it's burning. Preston Trevor tried to socially engineer the lock. Told the scanner he was Claire with deepfake AI voice mod tech. Lock didn't even blink. Paige Brett tried to get in by yelling executive override like it was Star Trek. Door said no. Morgan losses are hitting $2.3 million an hour per finance. They pulled 2 entire teams off-site just to troubleshoot the human element. Code name operation. I read each message slowly, sipping red like I was watching Game of Thrones, but the dragons had MBAs and the White Walkers worked in middle management. Trevor, it seemed, had spent the better part of his night pacing outside the Node 7 core like a kid locked out of his own birthday party. Someone had brought him a folding chair. Someone else, probably Brett, blamed the cleaning crew. Kyle, according to Preston, spent most of the afternoon in the break room pretending to coordinate with legal while stress-eating trail mix like it was his last meal on Earth. Then came the photo. Paige sent it. Grainy, slightly tilted, probably snapped on the sly. 10 executives, real adults in tailored suits, slumped along the tiled corridor outside the data center, backs against the wall, phones dead or dying, shoes off, ties loosened, eating cold pepperoni pizza off paper plates like they were extras in some post-apocalyptic Office Depot remake. Paige, they've been here since 10 a.m. They're going to try external consultants tomorrow. Trevor's eyes are twitching. I stared at the photo for a long moment, not in awe, not even in joy. It was deeper than that. Something between satisfaction and strategy. This wasn't just funny anymore. This was leverage. They weren't calling me because they couldn't fix it. They were calling me because they never planned for the possibility that I might walk. I had been a fixed part of the background to them like office wallpaper. Reliable, predictable, permanent. And now they were sleeping on tile floors and bleeding millions. The power had shifted. So I started planning. Not revenge. That was already underway. Terms, real ones, expensive ones, public ones. If they wanted access, they weren't just going to beg. They were going to pay. Not just with money, but with humiliation, submission, acknowledgement. Because if I'd been invisible to them before, they were about to learn exactly what it cost to ignore the woman who held the keys to their kingdom. They brought in the cavalry at 8:12 a.m. sharp. Preston messaged first. Preston, oh my God, Claire. They brought in the suits, the black badge boys, external ops. I think they're from Iron Bridge Security. One dude has a goatee and fingerless gloves. That set the tone. Put my coffee down and refreshed the chat like a stockbroker during a crash. Paige, there's a guy with a little briefcase, not a laptop bag, a briefcase. They've got toolkits, heat sensors like Mission. Impossible, Morgan. One of them just asked if the server room door listens for acoustic anomalies. What does that even mean? I already knew what was coming. I'd built it that way, because while Brett and Kyle were busy cutting costs and playing motivational PowerPoints, I was spending my evenings imagining exactly this scenario. Some contractor team with overpriced tools and an inflated sense of self-worth, thinking they could outsmart a paranoid middle-aged woman with a grudge and a decade of sysadmin fatigue. They never asked how the door worked, only how to get through it. What they didn't know was that Node 7 primary lock system wasn't just biometric. It was temperamental. Custom firmware, encrypted handshake protocol, and my favorite part, a tampered detection trigger hardwired into the voltage regulator behind the primary scan panel. Translation. If you try to force your way in with anything more aggressive than a cotton swab, the door gets pissed, which is exactly what happened. At 9:31 a.m., I got the update. Preston. Oh my God, they drilled it. Paige, I heard a pop like a spark and then the lights on the panel just died. Morgan. Trevor just threw up in the hallway. The fail-safe I built wasn't flashy. It didn't detonate or fry the building's grid or send up smoke like a Bond villain's lair. It was subtle, focused, effective. A localized electromagnetic pulse burst that fried the lock's internal controller, scorched the ID bus, and wiped all local access logs. Every credential, every backup token, every manual override gone. They hadn't just locked themselves out. Broken the keyhole. Page consultants are freaking out. One of them just asked if there's anyone still in the org who can decrypt the logs. Preston Trevor raised his hand. They ignored him. Morgan Kyle is pacing like a divorced dad at a Chuck E. Cheese. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Not out of cruelty, though. Yeah, it helped, but because I had told them this would happen, I gave them every chance, every warning, every audit. They chose to gamble my knowledge against an $800 license they didn't want to approve. Now they were looking at hardware replacements, downtime stretching into the days, entire client operations suspended. The server room wasn't just sealed, it was neutered. The floor outside Node 7 had become their new office, and they still hadn't called me, which was fine, because when they did, they weren't getting Claire Donovan, the employee. They'd be paying Claire Donovan, the contractor. And I was about to be the most expensive mistake they ever made. The call came at 11:04 a.m., 2 days after they thought they could replace me with someone cheaper. Not from Brett, bless his useless little heart. Not from Kyle, who by now had probably molted into a full anxiety rash. It came from her, Brooke Pemberton, Chief Operating Officer, woman who usually only spoke during town halls to thank everyone for leaning in and embracing scalability. I'd only ever seen her from a distance on stage in heels that cost more than my month's rent, speaking like her soul had been uploaded into a Google Slides deck. Now her voice came through my phone, cracked and brittle like a porcelain mask about to shatter. Claire, thank you for picking up. I didn't say anything. Let her fill the space. Let her earn the silence. I want to start by saying this situation has escalated far beyond our expectations, and we recognize your unique role in our infrastructure strategy. Unique like I was a seasonal flavor of soda. We're prepared to offer you your previous position with a title bump and a raise, significant raise benefits retroactive, full reinstatement. Her voice cracked ever so slightly on the word significant. Could almost hear the blood pressure in her temples pulsing like a metronome of regret. I swirled the tea in my mug, let her drown a little longer. Also, she added, we're prepared to issue a public acknowledgement of your contributions to the Node 7 architecture. Internal memo company-wide. There it was, the closest thing to a corporate. I'm sorry she could legally cough out. I waited until the silence was long enough to feel personal. Then I spoke. No, a full beat. Confused inhale. I'm sorry. I'm not interested in rejoining your organization. I'm no longer an employee. I'm a consultant now. My rate is $200,000 for a 4-hour engagement. Wired in advance. Brooke choked slightly, tried to disguise it as a cough. Failed. That's a Claire. That's highly irregular. Not for a firm hemorrhaging millions an hour because it forgot who held the keys. She tried to pivot. There's still protocol, legal review, procurement steps. There are no more steps, I said, voice flat. There's just the wire or the downtime continues. Another long pause and you'll guarantee system restoration. I'll give you access. I'll rebuild the interface if I have to, but there are also non-financial conditions. She exhaled like the breath cost her. Of course. What are they? 1. Brett stands in front of the entire IT department and reads a written apology. I want it recorded. I want it distributed. Internal Slack minimum. Okay. 2. Kyle does the same. In person at the next all hands, both are doable. Anything else? 3. My name goes on the Node 7 architecture as primary designer. Retroactively, documented, understood. 4. You don't speak to me again unless I invoice you. I heard her lips part to respond, then close again. Well, have the funds wired within the hour. Good. I'll send banking details. Don't delay. Paying for every minute you wasted thinking I was disposable. And I hung up. Didn't even smile. It wasn't over yet. But now they knew who was writing the ending. I showed up at 9 a.m. sharp, not out of politeness, out of pure theatrical timing. The wire had cleared. $200,000 for 4 hours. I made more in a morning than I had in my last 11 months combined. The receptionist, new girl, probably just out of college, looked up like she'd seen a ghost wearing last season's blazer. Her fingers hovered over the desk phone like she was torn between calling security or taking notes. I didn't stop. I walked past her, heels echoing across the tile like war drums in a marble cathedral. Past the cubicles full of wide eyes and half-sipped coffee mugs, the Whisper network lit up in real time, heads swiveled, backs straightened. Someone actually stood up and clapped before a manager barked them down. I kept walking straight through the glass doors of the executive wing. And there they were, the rogues gallery. Brett, pale, sweaty eyes like a stunned possum in an overhead projector. Kyle sitting, which was already a bad start, visibly trembling, one foot bouncing like it was trying to flee the room without him. Brooke, the coup, standing by the corner window, arms crossed, trying to look composed and failing miserably. Her shirt was wrinkled, her confidence even more so. Not one of them spoke. Not at first. Brett opened his mouth. I raised a hand. He shut it like someone had hit mute. I walked past them across the polished floor that had once squeaked under my sneakers when I stayed late, patching back-end failures they barely understood to Node 7. The consultant's gear was still scattered around like forensic debris at crime scene. Scorch marks laced the panel like spider veins. The wall smelled faintly of ozone and desperation. They hadn't found the second panel, of course not. It was hidden behind a thermal false front I'd built during a weekend they never paid me for. I knelt, pressed my palm to the cold, smooth casing, and slid the shield aside. There it was, my insurance policy. I activated the hidden Bluetooth sync on my phone, authenticated via retina, voice print, and thumb. System recognized me in under 4 seconds. The reboot took 90. During that minute and a half, no one spoke. No one dared. The lights flickered. A soft chime. The status bar crawled across the screen. Then, click. A beautiful mechanical sigh. The sound of redemption. The massive steel door to Node 7 unlocked and slowly, gracefully swung open. Air whooshed out of the room like it was exhaling after days of suffocating and incompetence. I stood, turned, faced Brooke, who had stepped forward with that old executive posture, but her eyes said, "Thank you," in 12 different dialects of regret. My 4 hours are up. I didn't wait for a response, didn't shake a hand, didn't let them fumble through a closing statement or ask for clarification. I walked past the flaking silence, past the rows of monitors that used to buzz under my care, past the very men who thought they could replace a legacy with a LinkedIn post. No nod, no wave, just the door hissing closed behind me. Let them figure out the rest. They bought 4 hours, not peace of mind, not forgiveness, not a second chance, just the beginning of a reckoning. And I hope every damn bite reminds them who built their empire and what it cost to forget her. Thanks for watching, you Cubicle Warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own.